There we go. Welcome, Bruce.
Hi, John.
Welcome back into the Shambhala School family.
Good great.
So I was thinking we could just have a quick round just to get a sense of who's here. Just if people could just share their names and where they are, what their location is, so we know everyone who's on the call, and then we can dive in further. So I'm John, and I'm in Berlin, and I think most of you all know me.
And I'm Bruce, and I am in New Zealand at Haydn.
Nice. So let's just go popcorn style.
Okay, I am Isioma. I'm in Nigeria.
Hey, Isioma.
Hi, Bruce.
Nice to see you again.
Hi, guys. I'm Matilda, and I just moved to Porto, Portugal.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Igor. And
I'm Katya.
We're in Moscow.
Hey. It's already a global gathering.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. It's John. My name is Rai. I'm on the West Coast in the States, in Oregon.
Hey, Rai, another Egyptian connection.
Hey, good to see you.
The West Coast Impulse. I'm Ella, and I'm in Vancouver. And I'm Paya.
Hi.
I think it's just you left, Arthur.
Arthur in Scotland.
Hey, Arthur.
Good to have you with us. Okay, awesome. So we are, we're gathered here with the fortunate presence of Bruce to explore some Shambhala School topics and themes and inquiries. And we're going to be exploring the theme of group initiation this evening, or if it's your morning time, because I feel like that has been, that's something it's a set of mysteries that the Shambhala School core kind of community has started to have unfold for us. I feel like there's a deeper group integration that we've moved into around the Aquarius full moon, and something started to come together where the group's had its first entry point to experiencing itself as a group that can transmit the life principle to humanity and into the earth. So it's previous to that, I think we've had the experience of each individual in their process, but there's been something that's come together on the group as a whole being a transmitter of the life principle. So I said to Bruce that the group initiation could be a cool theme for us to explore, and it turned out that's something that's been very alive in his world as well. So we're in sync. But Bruce, how would you feel about leading us in a bit of an alignment beforehand before we
Sure, great. So I feel like the alignment I'd like to lead this morning is one of Earth as a whole being. So maybe you could just begin by connecting up our souls and just feeling the global soul group. All these different points of light around the planet connected by the soul of humanity. And then turning our awareness to the earth as a living, vibrant being, a member of cosmos. and then to the esoteric dimensions of Earth, to the energy dimensions. So from the base center, from the core of the planet, from this fiery center of Kundalini energy, to Shambhala, to the crown center of the planet. So just in the visual inner experience of the earth as a living being with a light body, with a chakra system that human souls make up cells within. And then feeling the process of awakening going on the earth, where more and more human souls are being called into the chakras and liberated from them. So lift yourself for a moment into the free soul of earth, into the new sphere, into the consciousness of the one soul of earth. And then making the link via the soul of earth, via Venus, the sun, the Sirius, the center of the galaxy. Feeling the soul of the earth as part of the soul of cosmos. And making an alignment between the core of the earth and the black hole at the center of the galaxy. This column of dark light. And as this being of earth begins to deepen its process of soul initiation, we are some of those cells in the human soul that can make the link with the life, this current of life from the monad of the earth. And so for a few minutes, let's just deepen our connection with this life principle. And as it flows through us, let that invigorating, vitalizing effect flow into the soul of Earth, with the effect of freeing and liberating. Lifting the soul of the earth free of body mind, free of material focus. And grounding this energy into our bodies, into the body of the earth, letting the dark light from the galactic core drop into the atoms of the earth. And bringing our soul deeply into our own bodies and vitalizing. We'll just take a few minutes to vitalize ourselves as we transmit to the earth. Okay, thank you, everybody. Nice to feel you around the world.
Thank you, Bruce.
So maybe I could just begin with a little, piece around group initiation. So I feel like there's a few different forces awake in the world soul, and it's a critical period in human evolution because of these two different forces. One is that we've had this uplifting force. This has been the sixth ray journey for a few thousand years of trying to lift consciousness out of identification with the body mind. And so this is human consciousness awakening here and there, and deepening in the Aquarian age so that it's becoming whole groups. So there isn't time for each individual to go through their own process. Groups are going through this process to accelerate and liberate awareness. As it's liberated, it's also starting to descend. So the seventh ray is coming, which is dropping us back into the body. It's bringing the parts of the liberated soul back into full embodiment. But that descending energy is also meaning that it's going to deepen materialism as well. So there's a big rush on the planet between how much freedom can happen first, so that when we ground, we're grounding deeply the free soul rather than the soul still stuck in form. So this process of group initiation is a planet-wide process for the soul of the earth to start remembering itself. And it's accelerating as we go into the Aquarian age. And I feel like groups like Shambhala School have not just the opportunity to awaken as group, but to begin to transmit this energy of life force, which accelerates the awakenings in others. And particularly because the life energy is this dark juice from the galactic center, which accelerates. It's like pouring gasoline on the process of consciousness. And so instead of raising consciousness bit by bit, it just supernovas consciousness and accelerates the liberation. Of course, in doing that, that energy is very powerful and needs to be distributed according to love and on demand rather than by the use of the will. But the experience as it moves through the soul and through soul groups is an incredible experience of vitalizing, of a liberating energy that is invincible, that as it moves through us, it not only liberates our consciousness, it empowers and vitalizes the body. So more and more people becoming used to working with this energy and working with it in group is part of what's coming in the Aquarian dispensation. And I think that, you know, this thing that I've heard you use before, John, quite a lot, that we are a single being. Humanity is a single being of cosmic origin. That when we really start to remember ourselves, not as these individuals all over the planet, but as one being, as one soul, the soul of Earth, that has come and inhabited all of these amazing individual bodies, but we are a single being. And when that single being starts to talk through each of us, then it starts to self-recognize. We start to recognize when somebody is aligned with us and that us is speaking, whether it's coming through the heart, whether it's coming through consciousness, whether it's coming through actions in the world. The soul of humanity is starting to recognize itself across the individuality, and that's breaking the individual culture of materialism, where everybody is stuck in this identity of their self on their Facebook page and their reality, and they're starting to experience themselves really as this one reality of the soul of Earth. And that's what group initiation really is. It's the linking of more and more group individuals into the one individual that's the soul of Earth. And that soul of Earth is taking a powerful initiation at this time over this period. So there's just a preliminary, you know, esoteric perspective of the process that's going on. And I'm not sure whether you want to have a dialogue about this, John, or whether we're going to have, you know, questions, or would you like to run it?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. And I think what I'd like to next ask is, like, could you say a bit about your experience of this from the inside? Like, because I think, you know, there's one of the books that you put out is called Group Initiation, and that was you know, the Shambhala school group of the first phase, and that went over like a couple of years or something, where you were receiving transmissions from the Tibetan master that were all related to the fine-tuned process of like the integration and the fusion and the transmission and all of these different pieces. But, you know, I'm sure you've been part of inevitably you will have been part of other organic processes where a group soul is bringing together different beings and living through them since then. And I'm sure, like, there've been aspects of it which have evolved, and you've seen new parts that are part of it that might not have been present in the first phase. So I'd just like to ask you about your experience of this from the inside with the different groups that you've been a part of, where this has been living through the group process.
Yeah, sure. Well, you know, it's interesting that I wrote that at Haydn, and one of the beautiful things about being back here after, you know, 17, 18 years is really harvesting the work that was done then and seeing how long this process is, you know, that this goes on for generations, and we're harvesting the work that's been done by initiates, you know, hundreds, thousands of years ago, and it's going to flow through into the future. So, you know, the initiation happens through time and space. And one of the powerful things about working with it here is that it was like, it's one thing to connect with the soul and to connect with consciousness from a place of natural awakening and interest. It's another thing to do it through what we were doing it with was the path of daring. In other words, we said, okay, we're going to anchor this place on Earth. We have no idea how to do it. We have to hold something on the physical plane no matter what. And so the guidebook that was transmitted in group initiation was really not because we were just interested in this topic, but because we desperately needed the information day by day in order to survive in the fires that we were burning in. And so that seventh ray act of having an outer plane project that really grounds and lands and brings necessity to the process of group initiation. So, you know, that accelerates it. It's not just everybody sitting in their own world doing you know, this process is, it's needing to do the process because your life depends upon getting the next piece of information. So I would say that's a critical part of group initiation, which is the extremity of the soul in service brings forth the monad. So when the soul is given itself, because normally it's inflated by the juice of the life force, because you know what it's like when you touch the life force and you start to drink that juice, everything else pales by comparison. That's the thing, right? And of course, when you're in that thing, when you're in invincible, when you're feeling yourself as the life of cosmos, then everything becomes possible. And so you make rash and foolhardy decisions about what you commit to. And so in my case, it was like grounding the center, you know, in a fit of like, yes, I can do this. But of course, then the reality is you're in the fire day on day and day, and keeping the column open, keeping the fire coming into the center becomes the whole point, because if it dies spiritually, then it will pretty soon die every other way. So how do you then have the fire running through human souls in a sustainable way that keeps a center, an initiatory center, open? So for us, that meant we had to pretty soon get past ourselves as identities and start to see ourselves archetypally. So the group that formed began to see themselves as chakras within the organism of the field. And so we had to relate to whatever was moving between us interpersonally as archetypal energies. And so once we began to be able to do that and started to harmonize, then the group formed a being, and that being was an energetic being. And everybody found their role within their energetic being, and that helped flower their individual gift, their individual soul gift to the group through the practice of coming together. So that's a very seventh ray way of working, is like commit to a project together in the outside that serves this planetary evolution, and then you are given what you are needed normally at the last point, at a high point of tension, and that grows everybody. So I'd say most of the people that were involved in that experiment, which was very, fiery, would look back on it and say that was the high point of their spiritual life, even though they probably felt burnt out. So that's a seventh ray initiatory group project. Is like get together, anchor this on earth, and die in the fire if you have to. And then there's the more second ray process, which is people finding themselves around the world through resonance. And this is happening everywhere, just the vibrational resonance that somebody has with somebody else, that like, okay, our souls are part of something. We don't really know what this is, but resonance and love is bringing us together, and we're going to keep exploring that relationship until it reveals deeper and deeper and deeper. So this is a more second ray approach to group initiation. And the first ray approach is really those who are so in love with the will and the life force that they can't help but give themselves to it. It's the more sacrificial approach of those who are not seeking to find union with others. They are seeking to deeply, and it's like a nerve in the soul of humanity, someone that's transmitting. And those also find each other, but it's less easy for them to come together. And that's why the Shambhala school experience so is interesting, because those people who are vibrating with the life often have a natural repulsion to each other. So they're not naturally seeking each other out, but they are being called together. And so they have to overcome their natural repulsion, like protons in the core of an atom, to have nuclear fusion. And then they realize, well, actually, we are doing the same thing. We're part of the same thing. And so it's not so much a relationship, but just a coming together and recognition of core vibrational energy. So those are three different experiences of the way that souls are coming together, and they're different on every ray. But I would say that from a big picture on the planet, one of the things that's most needed now is for those life force people to come together, because they can widen the channel for the life to flow into the world soul. And it's that life that's flowing in, particularly at the moment, leading to 2025 and a alignment with the fourth ray and with Sirius, this brings in freedom. And so those souls that know at the core their own freedom, their inherent freedom of the life aspect, can together give that energy to the world soul. And I feel like that's part of the group initiatory process that this group is in.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, there's a couple more pieces that I wanna touch into before we kind of open it up for a dialogue. The first is, yeah, I'll go here first. So a lot of the transmissions that you guys received when you were doing the Shambhala first phase project, the seventh ray piece of anchoring, a lot of the processes that you were kind of educated around and guided through were to do with the roles that you had with each other in the group and the consciousness process of deeper integration and fusion and so on. And I'm feeling, you know, there's the soul to soul level of what's required in a group initiation process, and then there's also the embodied level. There's the emotional body to emotional body level, and sexuality to sexuality, and physical body to physical body level. And I know that a huge amount of your path in the time over the last years has definitely been, ISTA absolutely has been, going through a group initiation process of its own and so on. And the focus there is very much on these embodied layers. So it feels like for any group who's saying yes to this exploration, there's a whole bunch of consciousness learnings and processes that it's going to go through. There's a whole bunch of embodied learnings and processes. And there's one piece, you wrote like relating in the Aquarian age, which is a whole nother slant on what actually group initiation is on the kind of relating embodied level. And so I just wondered if you could speak into that too.
Sure. Well, and all of these three things need to be done simultaneously, in my view, because if you're coming together as souls in consciousness, for example, then if you want to ground something together, if you want to really land it, then you're going to have to get into your lower chakras. And so many groups just end up staying in meditation or staying in soul connection because landing brings all the problems of its own. If you are just coming together in the deeper energetic embodied sense where you're running energy and you're doing erotic work and you're doing emotional work and so on, and you're not doing the soul work, well, then you're going to get stuck in all of the stuff that happens in the lower chakras without soul. And then if you're also not coming together in the heart and finding new relationship models and ways of expressing the love that humans have for each other in a different way, well, then you're also going to get into many of the emotional and heart challenges. So all of these three things I thinking are having to happen together, that because the Aquarian way of relating is very different from the Piscean. So we're having to come together at soul level and recognize that there is group soul and that therefore we have deep resonance with others. Come together at the heart level and understand that the love that we are experiencing in our soul connections needs to find a way of relating with others that serves love rather than just serves the abandonment wound in the heart where people want to huddle together. And then finally, we also have to really experience ourselves as one energy body on the physical plane, which means how do we break the boundaries in our emotional bodies and our etheric bodies and our fears and our desires, and how do we have the soul flow through them so that the soul is coming and grounding in our bodies fully and deeply with each other. So I feel like different groups around the world focus on each one of those. And gradually, as the world souls coming together, as harvesting the information from, the more embodied tantric journeys to the more disembodied, Vipassana journeys to the open relating and polyamory journeys. All of these are starting to come together in service of what really is love and what is love wanting from us, and how do we relate to each other both as very sophisticated animals that have, grown through a long time of evolution on the earth, and as the soul of the universe that's self-remembering itself inside these different bodies. So how do we make that great atonement between our spiritual selves and our animal selves in such a way that love is served? So most of us are somewhere on that journey, and gaining some experiential information around it.
Awesome, thank you. And just what I wanted to ask as well. So, if you were to offer some suggestions or advice based on your experience to the people on this call, and so we have just on this call, you know, pretty diverse. We have some different chakras on this call.
Sure,
right?
I see.
So, you know, Isioma, I feel deeply in the heart space. Like Egor he's got some crown action going on. Like Katya, I think Katya's got a lot of heart space, but I think she's got some sacral fire that's there as well. You know, like Ella is definitely a kind of sacral chakra type of gal, I think. You know, so we've got different pieces here. So what would you say to people, what would you say to this group, to the individuals in this group, in terms of the steps that they could take to more deeply say yes to, if that's their will, to moving into this place of group and us being able to go forward as group?
Yeah, well, it depends on how fast you want to go, but you know, my truth is that in order to develop what I call ashramic intimacy, there has to be a willingness to give up sovereignty. And of course, this is the big game in the world. Like you can't really give up something until you've got it. And so you have to become a sovereign being, and you have to be reasonably integrated in your own nature before you're prepared to give it up. Otherwise, you're just passing over responsibility for your life because you don't want to take it. But if you are taking responsibility for your own life and you are reasonably integrated, then you can accelerate your process by willingly offering your sovereignty into a greater sovereignty. You know, this is using our own individuality to serve the group process, understanding that we really are all one being. And so as an individual, I can say, all right, I take responsibility for my individuality, but I have gifts, and those gifts can serve the collective, and others have gifts that can serve me. So if I'm truly coming into group soul and I'm willing to have my prayer and my heart be anything that's in me that's useful to you guys, I'm offering it. And if anything that you have that's useful for me, you're offering it, then the soul begins to have a much greater resource. So I don't need to learn everything that you've learned, John. I don't need to have a life where I become, you know, where I develop that, because I can breathe it in as a direct transmission from you, and I can give you my transmission. So we're starting as energy beings to say, let's accelerate our evolution by sharing the living vibration of the learnings, of the wisdom that's come from our journey with each other. And so then now, instead of transactional relating between people, there is unconditional relating, which is saying, what I am transmitting is yours, and what you are transmitting is mine, and I can trust my being to sort through what I need to build into my system and what is available for yours. And I can trust something deeper than you and me. I can trust the thing that's bringing us together, that has a greater wisdom, that is fusing us in a ways to some purpose that we don't even understand. That's the energy of, and accelerates all of our individual processes by drawing forth from us our gifts and sharing them with each other. So that really just requires consent. It requires a lot of bravery, but it also just requires consent, where I say, look, I'm giving myself to this process, and I believe that it's the fast way.
Thank you. Clear. Okay, so.
And if you think of that on a global level, you know, instead of like Christianity trying to enroll everybody, and Christianity and Buddhism trying to enroll everybody, or any other organism, the Theosophical Society, from that point saying, look, we'd like everybody to join us. Part of what we were told with the Shambhala energy was, rather than that, rather than creating a new center to enroll everybody else in, we create a center that actually gives to everybody. So instead of like trying to make everybody follow our way, we offer our way to everybody. And then that actually allows for transmission rather than enrollment. So you're not joining something, you're actually surrendering. And in that surrendering, you're transmitting.
Thank you. So I want to open it up to the group. So there's an opportunity now to make any comments or to ask any questions or to, initiate any kind of area of exploration that you want to initiate that can relate to group initiation, but it can also relate to like whatever feels like the most relevant piece for you in terms of your connection to the life principle, your connection to what Shambhala School is all about, whilst we're here with Bruce and we have this opportunity. So is there anyone who'd like to inquire about anything?
I'd just like to ask about this thing Bruce was talking about, transmission versus enrollment. Bruce, can you just develop a bit more on that? Like what do you mean by having a group transmitting to the rest of the world?
You're muted, brother. Yeah. Oh, we've lost your sound for a minute.
How's that?
Now we got you back.
Okay, great. So yeah, I could give an example of relationship, that the transactional relationship is your body minds coming together and trying to enroll the other person really in what's going on inside you. So let me tell you what it's like to be inside Bruce. Okay, and so that's kind of relationship. But if I come truly and deeply into relationship and surrender to us, so it's not like me relating to you, but we're both surrendering to us. So now the thing that is the both of us can use me or use you for a deeper purpose. So I'm not relating to you in a transactional way. I've surrendered into us. So when a group surrenders into us, then of course their self is given back, but they're no longer having their identity resting in themselves. Their identity is resting in the life of the group and also flowing through themselves. So your small I is now become a whole that you can thread yourself on. The group can start threading itself on all of these individuals. So then what's transmitting from the group is that life force that's moving through each individual, that isn't colored so much by the individuality, because it doesn't have to enroll each individual self in everything that it's doing. So, one of the keys to life force transmission is the willingness for the self inside every individual to open a hole in itself so that the life that is all of us can start to flow through. So the small example is just in a personal relationship. Are you going to lock into two individuals trying to relate to each other, or surrender to the one being that has brought you together and can now transmit through you?
In a certain way, you could say, like, that's why on the individual path, really giving yourself to your soul purpose is the road into, the transmission of the life principle, because that giving of yourself into your soul purpose is giving yourself into the whole. It's offering yourself up as a space through which, the purpose and the evolution of the whole can function.
This is why, death is such an important doorway, and why people's fear of death not death, but the death of identity is given back, but we don't know that when we give it up. So each person has to go through that life-death doorway of surrender, and that's part of the work of life.
Yeah. So actually, you could say that a kind of a step on the road into group in a certain way is that death, like is a willingness to let go of your kind of personal, individual, perceived, hoped for, dreamed for destiny, and being willing to surrender it into the purpose and the life force working itself out through the group and the wider life of the planet.
Yeah, because if you stay within the individual self, then you can join a group and you can leave a group, and then you can negotiate and you can feel good or bad, and so you're in your own individual sovereignty. But if you are surrendering to the life force, then you are not joining a group. You are remembering who you are outside of your individuality. So you're awakening as the one who is now expressing through Bruce or John or whoever. So you're not Bruce joining a group. You are the group that's remembering your Bruceness, you know, or some version of that. And that's a very different reality than the experience of getting up every morning in your individual self and going on your individual journey.
Cool. Thank you. Katya.
I have a question. What is love? If we unite in love, I would love to know, what does it mean to everyone?
Yeah, well, love's not really big on meaning, you know.
Still, I could get some idea of how do you call преломляется? Okay, it doesn't. Oh, how it's
something that I could say is that if you imagine love as the joining force of the universe, then of course it has many different levels. If we join in solar fire, that's that union that happens at soul level. We recognize that we are part of the one soul. Join at the emotional level, that's the emotional union and romance, for example. If we join at a sexual level, if we join at a life level, it's the recognition that there is no you and I, there's just this one life that's joining us. So I feel like love brings us together in many different ways, depending on where our identity is. If our identity is in the body, it's very different than if our identity is in soul, very different if our identity is in the monad. But love is the energy that will keep dissolving boundaries between us and bring us together into union. And the quality of that union and its depth will depend upon where our identity is.
I've considered this in terms of, use the symbol of a galaxy for the group, and it's like we're a collection of suns who are circling the dark center. You know, we're circling the black hole that's at the core of all of us. And I'd say like love at the solar level, as Bruce is saying, it's that force which keeps the suns in relationship with each other, and that sets us in right relationship with each other. There's that, it feels like there's this kind of triple orientation of each being. There's into their core, where there's that space for life transmission to happen. There's the love which holds us in group and which moves us in group and which deepens us in group. And at the same time, there's if we choose it, there's what's our focus, like what's our activity, what's our application of this.
Yeah, I like the 3 levels that I would work with a lot with groups. One is the I, where you are actually all the dark center. So everybody, when they have surrendered into their core, is part of the same life force. And then there's the thou experience, which is more I am a different coloring of that life force than you are. And so there's that experience that we are one, but we are different. We are one, but our souls actually have different qualities that they are sharing together in a field. So then we're more in our sonship, we're more in our, this sun is a bit brighter than this sun is a blue star, and this is a red dwarf, but they have different qualities of light and consciousness. But we recognize that we are love together, we are light together. And then there is the individuality, which is our body mind, which is very different from each other. And this is where our sovereignty as individual selves and our free choice each levels has its own way of relating, but together they integrate and form a group. And that group that recognizes that it is one, recognizes that everybody is different but united in their consciousness and everybody is absolutely a unique planet that is different from every other planet.
Thank you. Egor.
There is one thing I don't quite understand. So let's say there is a group that is coming together and starting to integrate, and at a certain point the one voice emerges and it can say it's one being. So is it like a new soul that came into existence, or is some existing soul already now is able to incarnate through the group? So is there an already like formed causal body that stores some wisdom for the group, or is it just building from the scratch?
That's a good question. You know, we're at the realm of soul now, and the example I would say is, you know, where you have those great peak experiences where you could say a deeper piece of your soul can download because you have awakened to a certain level that all of a sudden something opens and you remember a much deeper version of yourself. So the same on a planetary level, I believe that there are pieces of planetary soul that can download when groups come together. So what a civilization is, like say the Greek civilization or the Egyptian civilization, it's a huge piece of the soul of the world incarnating through a group, you know, maybe for a period of time of a few thousand years. So it's using all of the individuals that make up the civilization to reveal something of the evolution of the soul of the earth. So when a group come together and form deep connections and come into surrender together, they do provide a vehicle for deeper levels of soul to incarnate. Now, are those souls waiting around for incarnation, or are they, you know, a result of the incarnation? I guess it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. I think both are true. I think there are deeper levels of the soul of the planet that is trying to incarnate through groups. Just like, for example, when a couple come together, do they produce a child, or does the child actually bring them together in order to come through them? You know, so in the Aquarian age, we're going to have group children, and the group children are not necessarily, I'm not talking about necessarily an embodied being who comes and incarnates in a human body. It could be, you know, these new ideas that are coming through the Aquarian age, these new transmissions of soul require groups to come together in order to download through them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good inquiry, actually.
And also, is it fair to say that there is also a group personality that is becoming integrated, and it must become integrated for the soul to embody itself in a group? And so the process, like with a individual, the process is the same. The personality is integrating and the soul is coming down. And what you told about that the three, like the consciousness, embodiment, and the heart, can be done together in a group. I read somewhere that like very soon the first three initiations will be merged into one. Like it feels like if we do this in a group, like it may be even not every part of the group is doing all the work, but kind of the whole group knows everything and can do everything and generate the energy flow. So this may be like kind of the merging the first three initiations into one.
Yeah, I mean, because at the moment, if you want to have an integrated spiritual path, you've got to go off and do Vipassana for a stage in your life, and maybe you've got to do, you know, relating, and then you've got to go do your tantric embodiment work, and then you got to bring them all together. Whereas if you're coming together in a group, and some people are holding more powerfully the consciousness, some people are holding more powerfully the heart, some people are holding more powerfully the erotic, and that you are sharing that with each other, then it's kind of like you're on a workshop that is able to draw from everybody rather than each person having to go through all of the process. So that should accelerate it, and it should also accelerate the initiatory process, because the group is safely working with the integrated energy in the group that the individual does not have access to. So that should accelerate group initiation. And of course, that's happening now, you know, anyway around the world as people are cross-fertilizing their different pathways.
Awesome. So let's explore that a little further. So let's just go around. Let's explore this idea of like the group chakras a little bit. Let's just play with this. So I'd like to invite everyone. I'll say your name and just say like which of the 7 chakras you feel like your type of being most likely feels connected to. Right? So if you feel like, yeah, I'm kind of like a crown, or I'm holding heart energy, or I'm sacral. And it doesn't matter if we've got more than one of each, just to say which feels like where you feel your resonance. So I can go first. So I feel myself, I'm either like crown or heart. So Artur, where would you place yourself?
Crown and heart.
Say again?
Crown and heart.
Crown and heart. Okay. Katya.
I'm really confused, and I want to say all 3. Start with the heart, then say sacral, and then say crown. Because with the crown, I've been working more, and others I feel more intuitive and recently.
Yeah. Okay. Ego.
Crown and Ajna.
Crown and Ajna. Matilda.
I'd say crown, sacrum, and third eye also.
Okay. Rai.
I'm sorry, heart, sacrum, third eye.
Heart, sacrum, third eye.
I would say that probably Ajna or Anahata. It kind of goes between them, back and forth.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Isioma? Isioma just went dark. He just went void. All right, Isi, if we can't hear you, maybe just type it in. Ella.
Sacral and third eye.
Sacral and third eye. And Ella's companion, who I do apologize, I forget your name right now.
It's okay. My name is Paya.
Hey, Paya.
For me, it's the heart.
Heart. Okay, cool. So, Bruce, and where would you place yourself right now?
I would actually right now I'm base.
Nice.
But I would say crown, heart, base.
Okay, cool. So could you just say a few words just from your own experience? So we've got ajnas, we've got crowns, we've got hearts, we've got a sacral. We don't have a solar plexus right now. We do have a base in you. Could you just like take us through those different pieces of the group being, like, and just like what would be, if someone who's embodying the group base or the group sacral or the group heart or any of these roles were to understand themselves archetypally as like, that's what I'm embodying, what would be, how would that play out for them?
Well, let's say, for example, you know, the heart, it's going to play out individually, like, so that's going to be your strength, and it's also going to be your sense of sacredness in the group. When love is being compromised, when your heart is feeling tension, it's personal but also group. So finding the balance between how is this relating to me because this is my dominant energy, and how is this relating to the group. So this is also soul rays. We hold different senses of energy sacred. So someone at a heart center may have strong second ray. They notice when the love is dropping away in the group, it hurts them in some way, and they offer themselves to keep the flow of love moving. So it's their sense of sacred. Somebody who is more in the base or dropped into the base, you know, I often look for these people in a group, if I'm giving a talk or whatever, their body just won't take too much consciousness without wanting to move, without wanting to ground it, without wanting to dance it or bring it into embodiment. So they're also the people in the group. It's like, we've talked too long. Let's fucking do something, you know, like bring it into manifestation and form. And then there's those that are working with the third eye more, and of course, no one's just pure in one chakra. We're all a mix of a few, but most people have a triangle that they work with. If you're more in the visionary in the third eye, you're wanting to unite the consciousness of the field into a focused point and a focused vision. And if you're in crown more, you're actually, you know, the great transcendent energy that's trying to relate whatever the group's doing to something that is beyond the group and beyond the individual that you're trying to bring in. So of course, a lot of the debates that go on in group are debates between the different chakras. And that's what we were encouraged to see when we did group initiation, to realize, look, this note that's being sounded, how does that harmonize with the other notes so that all of the notes can be sounded in the group life? So yes, there is a transcendent reality. Yes, there is a deep embodiment piece. Yes, there is a need for heart and love. Yes, there is the vitalizing of the erotic energy and the sacral. Yes, there is the ability to articulate it and to manifest it through the voice and through sound and through words. But all of these need to be balanced. So part of it is self-reflecting on to where are my strengths right now? What are the gifts that when I just walk into a room, what are the gifts that actually emanate from me? And how do I offer those and integrate myself from the group by breathing in their gifts and allowing the group purpose, which is probably beyond what any of us can know, to reveal itself through us.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think you touched on sacral and solar plexus and throat there. I wondered if you could just run through those again, sacral, solar plexus, and throat. And also with sacral, because a part of your teaching, what's come through for you is the group use of the sacral chakra and actually what that looks like in the Aquarian energy. Maybe you could say something about that as well, because we've got some sacral holders here. Like Matilda, definitely, Ella also, Taki for sure.
Oh, well, the sacral, you know, the sacral is the last center to be worked with, because it's one of the most powerful. It's where the astral magic really works. And anybody who really works with erotic energy knows the seductive power of Eros and what it can be used for. And so it's also said to be the chakra in the planet where the forces of materialism are most strongly held. And so to bring clarity to the sacral center requires a deep alignment of the other chakras, so that very powerful energy of the seventh ray, which is coming, can be used in service of the manifesting of the soul. So sacral energy is powerful magic, and it has subconscious effect on group life. because it calls us into union, and it can also have a very strong, powerful, vitalizing effect on the group. So it's probably the energy most needed for the soul of the earth to land, but it's also the energy that's most stopping the soul of the earth to land. So it's the energy that drives everybody into materialism, but it's also the energy that pulls souls into manifestation. So the group use of sacral energy is group magic, is now starting to use, instead of sex magic of the individual who is missing something in themselves, and so they're using their quality of allurement to draw that to them from others. Now is a group that is full and needs nothing, but can use that power to draw the resources that are necessary for the world soul to manifest. So it's a powerful force, you know, that has links to sex and money and power that needs to be slowly brought online for the world soul to express itself. So it's a powerful magic for those who carry it, but it also can be a powerful source of allurement and distraction from the path. So if you don't have enough sacral energy in a group, then you're not manifesting and you're not cohesing. But if you have too much, then the whole group can just be swept into materialism. Solar plexus energy too is the energy that can set really clear boundaries and to bring forth the power of expression in the world. And boundaries are necessary, but it also can cause a lot of emotional conflict as people rub up against each other in what's called fire by friction. You know, the friction of individual emotional bodies meeting other emotional bodies and having disagreements and so on. Too much solar plexus energy, and you end up in a lot of group process, but not enough solar plexus energy, and you don't have clear boundaries, and you don't have a clear sense of your purpose and mission in the world. What was the last one? Was the third eye?
Throat.
Oh, the throat, yeah. So the throat center is the group helps manifest and it helps like that, so that a plan so that somebody needs to mute. So the throat center helps bring the plan that then the basic communications, and those communications are not necessarily verbal, and through words, they're also communication in the energy worlds between groups. So that's meditating together is also part of activating the throat center. And then also, what is your communication to the world as a group? Like, and that can also be outwardly through written words, but it can also be how do you transmit in the energy world so that you connect up the flow that this group has with other groups in the world. So the
Thank you.
Communicators in the group.
Yeah, so just like, I mean, like the Haydn that you just ran, third ray Haydn, that would have had a resonance with the throat. They were in some way throat crew.
Right, they were, and they created a lot of videos and a lot of.
Cool. Isioma, your channel is making some strange kind of electrical noises. Can you mute, please, brother? And it's not letting me mute you. I don't know quite why. Bruce, just one other piece, money. Like group initiation and money and manifestation.
I lost part of that question, John. Could you repeat it?
Yeah. Money, group initiation, manifestation, and money. Could you say some words on that? And that's connected to the sacral piece too.
Yeah. Well, I think as groups do start to share with each other, you know, part of sharing sacral energy in the group is the sense of vitality. So one of the reasons people are so tight around their sexuality and around money is because they are not sharing it, and they don't want to share it because they're afraid. And so everybody is holding the materialism in the sacral center is like, I want to keep my sexual energy to myself. I want to keep my financial energy to myself because I might need it, because it's energy that is required for survival. Once a sense of abundance starts to happen, so the soul is manifesting through the sacral center, then it's much more likely that we are wanting to flow. And so when the sexual energy is open and you realize that erotic energy is just part of manifestation, and that all of nature is erotic and the whole universe is erotic, and your erotic energy is not separate, then there's a willingness for it to be in the dance. And so when it's in the dance, then it's also shared. And the same with money. When money is realized that it's not just this, amount in my bank balance, money is actually an expression of the goddess, and it's a flow, and it's an energy exchange. Well, then the group starts to open its financially to see what love wants, rather than to have these energies serve survival. So that's I think actually money is a much more difficult one to work with than even sexuality, because it so triggers people around their survival issues. And so, but as people do start to flow money, and money starts to move towards love instead of moving towards fear, then the sense of abundance increases. It's the same as once you do start to flow your erotic energy, and you start to feel like, oh my God, I'm actually part of this erotic web of the universe, and there's no shortage. It's not just like a little reservoir I'm holding on to. It's moving in and out of me. Then you realize that money is the same. If you start to move it towards love and purpose rather than towards survival and fear, then the money starts to flow more, and it starts to flow in the group more, and everybody starts to feel more abundant, and that brings in more. So it takes time, and it's going to take time on the planet. We're in a great process of evolution around money as well as sexuality and power. But groups can start that process, and of course everybody's fear is, well, that's just it's just a way of dragging everybody's money out of them and having to surrender it and so on. But you can do it as a scientific experiment, and that I encourage people to do. It's like, just take a little bit of your money, figure out how much of your money belongs to fear and control and survival, and how much of your money is truly available for love, and just give a little bit more towards love and to your soul purpose, and see whether that starts a flow that makes you feel a lot better, and then give a little bit more. And so you don't have to do it all at once. You just gradually take more and more of your financial energy and your erotic energy and give it more towards your soul, juice, and purpose, and see what happens. Because what my experience is that flow just becomes more and more abundant as you reclaim that energy for love.
Gold. You're gold. I didn't intend that pun. And we will not be asking people to sign up for a pyramid scheme after this call, don't worry. Do we have any other inquiries or questions people would like to float towards Bruce?
I have a question. I've been on this top of the pyramid journey, reflecting on the fact that there is a huge proportion of the Westerner, white, wealthy person on this journey, and how to trickle it down to people who still have survival issues, but to normalize it, basically, to normalize actions based on love, despite the financial struggle, or normalize the spiritual search despite the concerns, daily life concerns. And I would like.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, one idea is that it's all developmental, and that as long as you're focused on survival needs, you can't focus on self-actualization needs and so on, that there is a developmental process. And of course, it is much harder when you're in survival to focus on the expansion of the soul. But I also think that we are all spiritual anyway. And so it doesn't matter what we're focused on, that part of the human dimension is available. And the other thing I'd like to say is that I feel like this idea of privilege, you know, that you're in the white, you know, rich group that have the luxury of being able to go to Koh Phangan and have your, you know, chakra awakening experience. And the idea of privilege in a way still buys into the separation of identity. So there's me and there's you, and there's this comparison between you and me. And whereas if I truly am the one, then I am just one of the cells within the human organism that has the opportunity and therefore the responsibility of this wakefulness. And so it's not about me and others. It's like I am now just a part of humanity, and I am the part of humanity that has been able to do this journey. And so this journey belongs to humanity. It doesn't belong to me. And so that's when privilege starts to disappear, and the joy of being able to make our journey within the context of the whole. And then that stops this idea of, well, there's me and my life, and then there's the whole, and I feel guilty about, am I contributing or am I using up resources and all of this, because I am just the whole that is expressing this way. And the person starving to death in Africa is the whole that is expressing that. And this is the great separation. You know, that means we have part of the world starving to death, and part of the world overeating, and part of the world doing consciousness studies, and part of the world, you know, all of this is a lack of integration, because we're not seeing ourselves as one being, and we're not seeing the beauty of having something that can be offered to its opposite. And so all of the money that is being hoarded, if it was available for those who needed it, then all of a sudden the world would work. And so the chief problem is not what everybody says it is, you know, the organizations or the systems or whatever. It's a lack of love. And that love comes from realizing that we are essentially one, and that we can't help but flow ourselves back to the one as we gain anything that the one needs. If we gain money, if we gain intellectuality, if we gain, you know, consciousness, if we gain erotic awakening, it all belongs to the earth. And so as we give ourselves back to the earth, both in the core of our hearts and practically in our expression of service and love in the world, then flow starts to happen. So yeah, it may be that, you know, white financially empowered people are the ones doing more of the consciousness work, but they're really doing it for everybody.
Yeah, the question was less from a place of guilt, more from a place of being outnumbered. You know, like the people who are like on the top of the pyramid are just less. And so how do you help land a culture with being so little people, basically?
Sure, yeah. Well, again, you know, I think that's why what groups like this are really important, because in the consciousness model, you know, spiral dynamics or Wilber's model, or many of the consciousness models all talk about the 100th monkey, and you've got to get everybody up the pyramid, and then we get to a certain level of awakening, and then the whole earth awakens. But when we're working with life, it doesn't require everybody to awaken their consciousness, because the life can penetrate the base. So we're not necessarily needing everybody to become high-level conscious beings, because when you connect with the life force, then that life force can transmit not through understanding and consciousness, but directly through matter. And therefore, the person who is not conscious and is struggling deep in survival is also benefiting from the transmission of the life. Whereas if we're just in the world of consciousness, it's only at certain levels of consciousness that you can awaken to certain other levels of consciousness. So I love the fact that life force transmission does not require someone to be at a level of consciousness for them to receive it.
Awesome. Thank you. Do we have one last question from anyone? I have a question for you, Bruce, but I'm also want to leave the space open for anyone else for a minute. Okay, I'm going to dive in. So if you were to put down any niceties, if you were to thoroughly just put down any respect for our boundaries or our choices or anything like, well, it depends what you guys want to choose, and maybe you want to do this, and maybe you want to do that, put that all down. What would be the unadulterated, unedited, naked advice of your heart to this group in terms of where it currently stands?
Yeah, okay, great. That's a good question. But I'd also say that, you know, I want to put the warning on the label, which is all kinds of, you will get from all kinds of people, but mine is a particular kind, so balance it with them. But you know, the great tragedy of my life and perspective is seeing the waste that comes from a lack of focus on infinity, I would say. the drag of people's attention into the smallness and the pettiness of life gives such a waste to the potential of the human spirit that is capable of contemplating eternity and infinity and bringing that into the minutest detail of their life. So I would say to find the way to take the biggest possible perspective and to find the life force that comes from that. It's a bit like if you're going to go weightlifting, you know, and you lift the 100-kilo weight, then the 5-kilo weight becomes much easier. And if you allow yourself to align with the cosmic, infinite, and eternal life force that's pouring through everything, then doing your taxes becomes easier. You know, so it's not a distraction from the practical things that need to happen in life, but it is a shifting of your identity and your focus and your being into the infinite, the eternal, and resting there and refusing to leave there in the core of your being, and then bringing that into anything and everything that you do. So that would be my encouragement, is to shift the core of your identity into the infinite.
Cool. Thank you.
I think just have a little bit of silence.
Yeah, let's do that.
John, I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of your process. It's amazing. Shambhala School is awakening this impulse right now. I feel like it's very cutting edge energy technology for the planet to shift into working with the life force and to experiment doing that into formation. So thank you for letting me be in this energy with you and transmitting with you today.
Thank you, brother. And I want to acknowledge the energetic lineage here as well. So it's like you founded Shambhala School, and you remain as definitely a kind of a transmitter of its core energy in the background. So it's a really beautiful opportunity for us to get together and to be in contact with you, for us to draw closer to each other and have a point of contact, so that transmission can be can come in an even more intimate way. So I know there's we'd love to do this again, at some point. It's a great it's nourishment for this group and for our capacity to go deeper in our passion and in our transmission of the life force as a group.
Yeah, I like what you said the other day. It's like writing love letters from inside the life force, and times on the planet where great change is happening, like at the times of Copernicus, when they realized the Earth went around the sun and they started to play with the solar energy and consciousness, and what that meant was like ecstatic. The same with this life force energy, that inside it, for those who know it, it's such a deep ecstatic current that be able to share it with others is a pure delight.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone. Wishing you a really beautiful rest of your evening or your day. And we'll gather again soon, and we'll see each other online. Have a beautiful day, Bruce, and much love, everyone.